everyone, welcome back to Talking Trikes episode 2. I'm Kyle and we have Darcy here as well. Lots happened in the last week. Victoria has seemed to not been doing too flash. So with the next race being planned, or the first race being planned, August 15th, 16th at Vic Park in Adelaide, it will be very interesting to see what's going to unfold over the next few weeks. Darcy, what's been happening over there, mate? Give us an insight.
Yeah, well, I'm not in Victoria, but I can give you a rundown. So what's happened is that there's been a cluster that's broken out and it's sort of just blown out into the community. I think they're still getting about 75 cases a day. And unfortunately, the South Australian government has decided not to open the borders when they originally planned. So at the moment, estimates from a couple sources are looking at maybe 2 months. So yeah. So unfortunately, it doesn't look like that it may open in time for the race. But I guess the question does come down, should we race? What do you reckon, Carl? Should we go ahead with the race, man?
Yeah, I definitely think race. I know that everyone that can participate in the race would be super keen to race. And I think there's obviously some power teams in Victoria. There's lots of competitors from Victoria, but I think it's really important for the sport to go on. And however that might be, I think it's just got to happen.
Absolutely.
And Victorians are going to be, missing out, but that's only going to make everyone a little bit more eager to get back on the track. And hopefully it's sooner than 2 months, but I think the racing has to go on.
Yeah, absolutely. So what do you reckon about this? Should the series discard the first race in terms of points, or what should be the go? Because you've got categories like the schools categories that won't be really affected by this as much because they're not going to be having that Victorian influence. But when you're talking about category C7, it's just a completely different story. If you're missing out on arguably, obviously, the big dogs, you're not really going to have a fair old go. And if there's only 2 races, if you add the points on, whoever just is there is going to win. So should the committee discard the points for the first race if many Vic teams can't come across, or should the show just go on like they usually would?
Yeah, it's a tough question, as everything is at the moment. In my opinion, I think for the teams that are, really affected, those categories should just be like, all right, when everyone can compete, it's level playing field from then on. Whether they have a separate kind of section for the ones that can compete against each other, I'm not sure. I think for me, racing, the main race, obviously, to win was always Murray Bridge. It was the one that we cared about, and I think that's the main race for most people that, you really want to win. As much as points and series go, I think the Murray Bridge win is the big one. So yeah, I don't really have an answer to that. It's quite a tough question.
Yeah. I think personally, I reckon it should be just a winner takes all race at Bridge. That'd be the fairest way to go, because if some teams are blocked from racing, it's not really fair racing. It's just whoever happens to be lucky enough to be based in South Australia is going to take the win. Easy as.
Absolutely.
I think if the borders are still open at Bridge, it should just be winner takes all. So whoever wins everything. And then with the other categories, I think that's something that can be discussed further. Cool, Carl. So what? Yeah, so I heard we've got a special guest coming on. Can you give me a rundown who this might actually be?
Yeah, so a guy that I know fairly well, I've raced with, against, and he's just been part of the racing scene in, trikes and pedal pre for as long as I can know. I remember hearing a lot about this guy, or this kid really, when he was a younger guy, and he was racing with some really big teams, which I'm sure we'll hear about soon. He raced with me with Aurora, and he was lucky enough to win the Mowbridge race last year with Wattle Ironbark. So on the show today, we have Brenton Hassett. Welcome, Brenton. You've been in the sport for as long as I can remember, racing in many different elite teams. Give us a little bit of an insight into your history in the sport, mate.
Yeah, g'day guys. Thanks for having me. Yeah, look, I started off back in high school. I think I was in year 8, which would have been 2008. Started with Haruna. I actually started back where John Taylor had sort of just sorted out all the clamshell fairings. And yeah, started with the school there. That was really good for me. I sort of didn't have anything to do with cycling or anything like that. I was actually coming out of athletics. And yeah, sort of got asked to ride for the team at school and thought it was something pretty cool to do. So yeah, went and tried it out and loved it ever since. Was absolutely hooked from that day on. And yeah, sort of went from there and did a few races. I think my first race was Casey Fields. I actually got to ride in the team with Jack Haig. Yeah, if you guys know Jack Haig. Yeah, got to ride with Jack. That was pretty cool. That was my first ever race. We won that. I was at Casey. And then yeah, the second race I did was at Wonthaggi. That was different, 24-hour. Yeah, absolutely loved that. Knew that was something I wanted to do for a long time, was HPV. After I did my first 24-hour, loved it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and from that day onward, I sort of did a bit of training and got all right at it. And yeah, the True Blue Boys, actually the next year, they were looking for a rider. They lost their rider, Steele von Hoff, because he went off to be a pro cyclist. And yeah, they come to our school. What's that?
As you do. You step in
and
fill the position.
That's it. Yeah, from that day, like when they came to our school, True Blue came to our school, and yeah, they were asking around for riders, and yeah, I had the opportunity to put my hand up and go ride for them. But yeah, I wasn't actually the quickest at the time either. It was just lucky on the day or sort of the week around that time. The kid that was actually the fastest was Crook. So
oh, lucky as.
I got to fill the spot. Yeah. So yeah, yeah. The next year I rode for True Blue. So yeah, that was all of 2010 when I was only 14. So yeah, that was pretty great. Absolutely loved it.
Wow, it's massive. Yeah, 14.
Yeah, I went from racing from True Blue in 2010. I did like the school races, but obviously when I had the chance to ride for True Blue, I obviously never turned that down.
Yeah.
But yeah, so rode with them. We actually won Murray Bridge in 2010. Can't remember who we even our biggest competitors were. I don't even know. I don't think I knew enough about the sport at the time. I was just sort of thrown in the deep end a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it was Tri-Sled. Tri-Sled were probably pushing us back then. But yeah, so yeah, that was that year, and yeah, the next year that was when I started with senior, 2011. Yeah, started with Bendigo Senior. I got to finally meet Daryl and Tim White up there at senior. Those, if you don't know who Daryl King is, he sort of started BYR with a couple of boys here in Bendigo, like Nigel Preston. He runs Energy Breakthrough. A few other people like that. And Tim actually taught Daryl back when he was a student at senior. And yeah, so Daryl was sort of, I moved into one of the biggest HPV sort of breeding grounds here in Bendigo for HPV. So yeah, that really sort of put the flame in me, and that's probably where I learnt me most, just about training and just about vehicle technology and stuff like that, and even handling. Like I was probably not the best handler until I went there, and the vehicles are so light, you sort of don't get a lot of time for error when you're handling the things. But yeah, so I learnt a lot there. Awesome friends, met so many amazing people. And then yeah, 2012 I rode for senior again.
Yep.
And then after that it was Aurora, all the way up until Wattle.
Nice.
Yeah, big history, that's for sure. Way longer than me.
Yeah, I've ridden for a few teams. I've always sort of stuck by the teams that I've been in. I think the hardest thing for me was the change from Aurora to Wattle. Obviously, Aurora finished up, and I'm not sure they finished up. Sort of just built a bit of a gap year or something, wasn't it, Kyle? It wasn't really like
it's like a little time out.
Yeah, it was just a bit hard, like I had a lot of my mates that I'd ridden with at school riding for Wattle, and you guys are all from Maryborough. Was sort of I knew you as well. I got to know you as well for the years, but you sort of to go back and hang out with your childhood friends and be able to ride in an amazing team with them. It's just something else, and it's the same for you. Like you're from Maryborough, you get to ride with the Maryborough boys.
Yeah.
Over some blokes from Bendigo, you're probably going to pick the Maryborough boys, aren't you?
I think you're always going to want to go back and ride with the guys you grew up, and it's just it's something about it. It's just a bit of fun. Like you just want to see how they go. You have a bit of fun together. It's just a good feeling, and I think that's the biggest thing that like I'm missing. I just want to go and hang out with the boys, and it's just like as fun as racing is. It's just like going and seeing them and seeing how they've been, and as we all get older.
That's right.
And,
that's the biggest thing about not going to events. You miss your mates, like you guys I never get to see outside of HBV racing, and people from over in SA, like all the relentless guys, and Jason Noddle and all that. It's like it's really good to see all you boys, and if the races aren't on, you don't get to catch up. It sucks.
Yeah.
Cool, Ranga. That was a massive history. It seems you've got more history than I do, even being alive. So what's happening now, man? COVID hit. It's all up in the air. But what's going on with your life, man? How are you coping with it?
Look, it's certainly been different. I wouldn't say it's been great, as it's not been for anyone with this COVID around. I think the hardest part's been missing all my friends from HBV races, even just me friends from Wattle, because the restrictions and stuff haven't been able to catch up as much, and it's just not the same through social media as catching up in person and being able to go out ride in a group or something like that. It's been a little bit tough when it comes to mates and friends and stuff like that. I guess everyone sort of in our team's been feeling a little bit isolated. But I think a lot of the boys are still training. The fitness is up, but I think there's a few boys that aren't motivated this year, and I'm definitely one of those boys. You go through a lot of seasons, and very rarely you get to push the pause button and just enjoy the year and get fat. And that's definitely been me this year. I've been putting the pause button on it and slapping a few extra kilos on, and certainly not training at all. So it's just been enjoyable just to sort of look at my life, and I'm building a house and stuff at the moment. So it's sort of all that kind of stuff that I wouldn't normally be able to get done with a season not being on the go. It's all that stuff that probably wouldn't have done before if COVID hadn't hit. That's what's keeping me going at the moment. But from Wattle's perspective, I think everyone in the team has taken a bit of a step back this year and sort of just enjoying what's going on in their lives. And I know all the boys that do the development stuff with the vehicles, they've spent a lot more time on the actual vehicle itself and future developments. We've certainly spent a lot of time with the vehicle this year, and that's been really great. I think anyone that's pushing the sport forward and, sort of testing new things, and that this is the perfect time for that. So I think that's it's a great opportunity to develop the vehicles, speed and stuff like that. So I assume there'd be a lot of teams out there doing similar things to Wattle and just focusing on testing and stuff like that. So
absolutely,
that's sort of what we've focused on this year.
Have you had a chance to get out in the truck at all this year?
We've been down to the velodrome. I think some of the boys took it down to Casey not too long ago. The vehicle's showing some good speed. It's kind of hard to tell when you're not on a racetrack. It can look good in testing. From my years of experience, the truck can look so good in testing, and you get to the race and it's just mid-pack pace, or you might not, you're still up there, but it's not showing the speed that it did on the test days. So it's looking good at the moment with the vehicle, but other than that,
you never know, you never know.
That's right.
Right. Yeah.
That's exactly right.
So the last few years you've been racing with Wattle, and you fell short a couple of times at Murray Bridge, obviously, but last year, you had an amazing race. Tell us a little bit about that. Did something click, or did something happen through the year, or, it was obviously your year, so fill us in, like how did it all unfold?
Yeah, last year was a pretty cracker of a year. I think HPV racing's a little bit like cooking a good meal. You got to have all the ingredients there to actually make a good meal. It's got to be nice and fresh, and you got to prepare it well, and got to cook it for the right amount of time. And I think that last year we really did that well. We've really prepared ourselves well. The boys came into the season nice and fresh, so we're ready to do some hard yards in the training. And we sort of rode off the first half of the year, which, look, we still had a nice base fitness, so we were able to be quite quick at races, but just the vehicle time and all the hard training that we normally put in through a whole season, we sort of dialed it back a little bit at the start. And really prepared and sat down with one of our guys that helps sort of coach us all. He's absolutely cracker of a guy. Spends a lot of time after hours sort of putting time into the boys and working out what the best training program is for the year. He sort of spent so much time with each one of us individually, because that's what a team is. It's a heap of individuals that come together and make a great team, and that's what we really focused on. Just how can we make the training better for the boys and make it so they actually want to come and train, and what works for each individual person. And I think that's what happened well last year. We came into that last half of the year when we knew we wanted to try and win Bridge. We sort of had fallen short, obviously. As you know, pretty much every year we've taken Wattle there. We've always been sitting in the second spot, or sometimes even third. But yeah, last year we sort of come into the end of the season there with great preparation for that one race. Our training was peaking at that time with all of us, because we're all coached by the same person, rather than going through different, some people come from different sports, or they might be doing a different program. They might have more focus on other events. But yeah, this year we all decided we're going to sit down, we're going to have a crack at this one race. I think that was probably the most important thing, was definitely our training. So yeah, when we came into Murray Bridge, you probably, the vehicle speed was up, but you're probably seeing a lot of the fitness coming out at that race. Even our younger guys that probably they can do the pace, but they probably can't do the duration. But even those guys, they did nearly 2-hour stints at the pace of the front runners. We were also even in that team. There was never a standout person. Everyone, the pace was just ridiculous with how consistent it was. So yeah, we were really just a team at that race, and I think that was the biggest difference maker. And all these years I've been doing it, I think I've never ridden in a team that's been so consistent and evenly matched. I think that's what got us through.
Obviously racing for Relentless, we were amazed at, exactly what you were saying. These riders just riding amazingly fast for such a long time. And we kind of just lost the lead at the start, and we just could never catch us back. It's just so consistent and so fast. And it was just, as hard it was good to see, because, Wattle have been right up there for so many years. And it's been such a good team for the sport as well. So massive performance.
Yeah, how did it feel? Brenton, how did it feel? You and the team have worked so hard for so long at this. How sweet was victory at the end?
Yeah, look, from a personal perspective, it was pretty amazing. But I think for me, it was just we'd all worked pretty hard that year, and it was kind of, for me, it was bittersweet. I was pretty worn out coming into the end of it, so I was over the moon to get the win, and overwhelmed. But I think for some of the boys in that team, you got Reese Harris. Kid's been riding since primary school. Reese actually a lot younger than me. He was only in grade 6 or something when he started HPV, and that kid's been training hard every single year since grade 6, and he'd never won Murray Bridge. And just to see those boys win Murray Bridge, it's just something else. So yeah, I think that's what did it for me. Just seeing my mates win the biggest event of their life, it was pretty awesome. So that's what hit me home, like, right in the field. So yeah, that was good.
All right, Brenton, just to wrap things up today, let's hear about your worst moment in the sport and your best moment in the sport. What do you got?
I probably started off with the worst, eh? Worst moment was probably I had a intolerance to wheat, and I went to a couple of races with I did a heap of races with Aurora, but I think it was my first year. I was only pretty young still, but when you're first looking after yourself, sometimes you forget to tell people things, and I forgot to tell Azza that I was had a wheat intolerance. For those of you who don't know who Azza is, he's the owner of Aurora Racing. And yeah, anyway, sure enough, I smashed down some spag bowl, and this is at Wonthaggi. Yeah, probably coming into later half of my stint, I threw it up all over the roof.
Oh.
And sort of all the spaghetti strands stuck to the roof, and they were just dangling in front of me sight. So it was
who was in after you? Was it Azza? Was Azza in after you?
Nah, it was Henry. Yeah, ask him about it.
He would have loved that.
Yeah. He was going off. Yeah, so that for me was pretty gross, and I felt pretty bad about having to send Henry on his way with spaghetti hanging off the roof. So yeah, and I didn't
talk about mid-race carbs.
That's it. When I got out too, I forgot to tell Az that I'd done that. So when he did the pit stop, he just closed the lid and it just fell straight into Henry's lap. It's so gross. So yeah, that was probably one of my worst moments. And then probably my best, probably just best. Probably good. There's been some good memories just from the sport. You get to meet lots of people. We come across some awesome people. But yeah, probably back in 2011 when I first started riding for senior, we just debuted our brand new carbon trike that we were racing at Adelaide, and I think it was the first round of Adelaide or something, and we actually came as a school team. We actually came second overall.
Wow.
And that was against some good teams, you had Blue Shift and Tri-Sled and all that there.
Wow.
And,
wow.
Yeah, to come second overall was just, I don't know, it was just really cool as a school team. And that race, we're just a bunch of bogans come from the country. And any of you guys that remember what senior was like back in the day, when they were racing, over in different states, are just a bunch of loose units. There's always a bogan at senior. And yeah, just remember getting out of the trike at that race, and just people just piled on you, just to get around you and stuff, even though you're sweaty. And
yeah, love it.
It's just the most bogan thing ever. So yeah, I just loved it. It's just that memory will always live with me forever. So yeah, that's what HPV does.
Yeah, with Bendigo, they're pretty renowned for their names. Do you remember some of the names that they had when you were racing?
Oh yeah, like the vehicle names, or
yeah, the vehicle names.
Ours were pretty laid back. I thought, just razzing, and we had Gonna Have a Bad Time, which that year we definitely had a bad time. Yeah, I think our years were pretty laid back, but there was some real bogan ones in the years after I left, and I think mine was red lid bin or something. I don't know. There's just lots of weird names coming out of that school. It was pretty funny.
Yeah, I remember Grand Theft Mango and Uphill Gardner, and they're like, "What's going on? Where are these people from?"
Yeah, there's some pretty funny names coming out of there, eh?
Yeah.
I always wonder what people thought of senior. Who are these guys?
Did they just have a hat and they just had random stuff and they had yep, all right.
Yeah, well, pretty much went like that. It was probably a lot of it just come from whatever you were looking at the time. That's why the bin lid one was a funny name, or yeah, just I don't know. We decided to make front wheel drive, and somebody's like, "Oh, you're gonna have a bad time," so we named it "You're Gonna Have a Bad Time." It was actually no. It was also a South Park episode that somebody was banging on about in that time. So it's just weird names that come out of nowhere.
Oh, that's great. That is awesome. Spaghetti hanging from the roof. That's a good one.
Well, thanks for joining us today, Ranga. Hope that everything can improve in Victoria and we can see the Wattle team, back on the circuit soon. We wish you all the best. Next week, Darcy, what do we got?
For next week, we've got some interesting plans in mind. Hopefully we can be joined by some manufacturers of trikes and get their insights on what makes a trike fast, how to make a trike, and how to make sure a trike doesn't break. As well as that, we'll be giving you regular updates on what's going on with the series as it's an ever-changing climate. So thanks, Ranga, for joining us, man. It's been great.
Thanks for that, fellas. I love what you guys are doing. Doing an awesome job.
No worries. We'll see you next week for Talking Trikes, episode 3. Bye for now.
See ya.